Hello everyone, welcome you all for the webinar. Thanks for joining in. Today's topic is cloud-based performance testing of mobile apps. It will be an hour session with 40 to 45 minutes of presentation, which will be followed by 15 to 20 minutes of question and answer session. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. This is Nilesh here. I'm Vice President at pCloudy and I look after the pre-sales and operations. I'm acting as a moderator for today's webinar and we'll also be taking you through a live demo of some of the key scenarios towards the end of the presentation. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce today's key speaker, Mr. Ganesh. Mr. Ganesh is a BTech from IIT Delhi and EGMP from IIM Lucknow. With over 18 years of work experience, he has worked in companies like Adobe and has been a co-founder for multiple ventures. As a tech evangelist, Ganesh has a deep passion for mobile app technologies. He provides consulting to organizations taking up digital transformation journey. Over to you, Ganesh.
Thanks, Nilesh. I welcome everybody to this session on cloud-based performance testing of mobile apps. So let's get started. Now, if you look at the competitive area in which we are in today, especially the mobile apps, in order to have your customer, keep on coming back and using your app, it is very important that it performs well. Performance is a very critical factor. Now, so from the customer's perspective, if you look at it, they want the functionality to work faster. That's what they want. So for example, let's say if it is a restaurant searching app, it should work fine. If it is an ordering app, whether Flipkart ad or Amazon app, right, it should be snappy, right? Or if it is a gaming app, it should again be very snappy. So they don't care about what the technicalities involved in that are. However, for a technical person like you, and I'm assuming most of you who are on this webinar are technical people, you need to take care of various things. And those things could be like, the processing time, the memory consumption, and so on. And these factors are the factors which are responsible factors which affect the functionality of the mobile app, whether you are trying to search something, whether you are trying to book something, right? Anything. So, and there are a lot of factors which basically would be influencing the processing time, the memory consumption, and so on, right? And not to forget the network speeds, right? The inherent characteristics of the device, and so on. So as a technical person, you need to take all those into consideration, and then also see the kind of the target group which the app is designed for, and what kind of devices they will be having, and how then you have to make sure that you jot down the all the requirements and then come up with test cases and execute them and see the performance as per the expectation of these customers would be. Now, so definitely you need to test all these so that the customers get what they are looking for. And so they may be on like iPad, or they may be on a Samsung phone, right? Or they may be on an iPhone, right? Or they may be on a Nokia phone, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the ways of going about is that you buy all these devices, set up your own lab, right? And like do testing on all these. Now, way back, I remember in 99 and 2000, 2001, when mobile devices, especially the smart combos, were still a starting point of the disruption. There were no solutions or cloud-based solutions where you could do that, and hence we had to end up buying devices, set up our own lab, right, and test on that. Okay. And it used to be a challenge keeping pace with those devices, right, because shipment itself used to take some time, and so on. And but now you can avail all these devices on the click of a button on the cloud, and that's what, in the second half of our presentation or this webinar we're going to look at it. All right. Okay, so the motive is to basically in this webinar understand some of the performance aspects and then how you can use the cloud-based solutions for it. Um, so let's start with what are the performance parameters of the mobile application. And if we look at typically in terms of the three broadly used terms, load, stress, and volume, and we'll understand what these means and how they are applying to the mobile. Uh, so those are more, like technical terms, but in terms of uh, a more layman language, we can say the time taken, the memory consumed, or the data consumed. These are some of the important factors that we need to look into. So in order to go deeper into it, we need to have a knowledge about various tools that are available to us that will help us to dig this information. All right. And of course, we look at, how pCloudy can help you in doing that performance testing. But prior to that, you have to have a very good handle of, how to go about planning for performance testing. Execution comes later, right? And then of course the result analysis. So planning is very important for performance testing. In fact, just as you prepare a test plan for your functional testing, similarly you need to put together a test plan for performance testing. That's very important. And so let's look, let's start with the basic fundamentals first. So what is performance? So generally, if you look at it, it is a turnaround time of things to happen. For example, if you go to, let's say, a McDonald's and you order a burger, how fast you get it delivered on your counter, all right? Or let's say you're a checkout of a mall, let's say West Side, and you place your merchandise on the billing desk. How fast they're able to process it, right? Generate the bill, take the payment, and then pack it and give it to you, right? So these are some of the examples where you can clearly see what turnaround time is. Now, if you look at the apps, right? So it is, in terms of the apps, it is a time taken for various tasks. So for example, let us say you are opening up a web page right on a browser on a mobile device, or let's say you're launching an app. How much time did it take? Or let's say you move from one menu item to another. How much time did it take, right? And so on. And if we go at a more technical level, that's from the functionality perspective that we're looking at the performance, which definitely the consumer may be looking for. But technically, the things that will be impacting, right, this kind of a turnaround time is the memory consumed, CPU utilized, network consumed, right, and so on. Okay. So those are the things that we need to monitor while we are working with an app, and then based on that, of course, we will see that whether whether it will be able to satisfy the customer needs or not. If not, then we need to do something about it so that the customers are satisfied. Now, how much how much time does it take given a set of input and output to show up, let's say? So this is a more generic kind of a thing that you need to analyze. Now what that input is going to be and what that output is going to be is something that you are going to define in terms of first understanding the requirement and then coming up with the right kind of test cases to execute. All right. So for example, let's say how much it takes to launch an app, how much time it takes to render a web page, how much time it takes to log in, right? So these are some of the things that you have to keep in mind. And this is very critical in today's time as hardware speeds and net speeds have gone up. And users simply hate waiting actually. They just don't like waiting. The competition is so hot, right, that for example, let's say in the real estate market or in the consumer retail market, right, there are multiple apps out there, and if it is taking time, people have to wait longer, they will just switch to another app, right? So it's not like the old days that you have to walk to a mall, right? If you don't get something there, then you'll have to go to another mall. everything is available on the mobile device, right? If your app is not able to take care of it, you will quickly shift to the other app. So let's try to understand some typical terms. Load testing. So load testing, stress testing, and then I'll come to the volume testing. So what is load testing? So it is generally also referred to as the performance testing, generally, right? But it is loading the system and measuring the performance. What does that mean? So for example, let's say, there is a bus which has a capacity to handle 50 passengers. It has 50 seats. So you basically fill up everything, all the seats, and then try to drive it around and see, how it performs. Similarly, if in case of your app, right, let us say, so app would, either it will be a completely native app which runs on your device, or it will have components which are running at the background. So there'll be a backend to which it connects, right? So depending upon, to what kind of a requirement it is designed for. So if it has a backend, for example, and if you have a capacity to handle 50 consumers at the same time, right, then you will load the system with 50 users and see whether it is performing to that level or not, right? That kind of stuff. But the stress is that, let's say, if I come to the example of bus again, you loaded up to the 50 passengers, but then you allowed some people to stand also in the bus. So let's say 5-10 people were standing. So you stress the system a little bit and see then how it performs, right? So that's what you do. Okay, you were allowing 50 concurrent users. You'll say, okay, let's add 5 more and see how the various key requirements, functionality requirements are behaving in terms of the turnaround time, right? That kind of a stuff is the stress. And the volume is basically measuring the performance by feeding it with a lot of data. Now again, if I take the analogy of the bus, it will be not just the passengers, number of passengers, but let's say how much luggage these passengers are carrying, right? Whether they are just carrying a small bag, right, or they are carrying one suitcase each. What is the weight of that suitcase? Similarly is the case with the applications also. That it's not just basically the number of users, let's say, right, or the transactions, but what is the data that is being transacted in that kind of a transaction, right? So that's what we are referring to as the volume testing. So the process of going about all this kind of testing is identify the key performance indicator, identify the environment setups, and identify the logging to be used, tools to be used, and then execution and result reporting. So in terms of identifying the key performance indicator, so for a typical app, which has a front end and the back end, right? So the front end, the things to monitor would be how much is the CPU being utilized when you are running your application, how much is the memory is being consumed, how much is the battery and the network consumption taking place, what is the turnaround time of the transactions based on various states of these actually, right? And then of course at the same time, if it has a back end, then you have to see things like concurrency, throughput, and scalability, and so on. Now when it comes to identifying the environmental need, you need to, depending upon your target group, you need to look at what kind of devices you're going to support, what are going to be their configurations, right, in terms of the processors, in terms of their memory, right, and so on. And then you have to identify tools that need to be used to do this kind of testing, right? Now typically, if you are working on Android Studio, you have some tooling available over there, DDMS, Android Monitor, and so on, or you can use cloud solutions like pCloudy, right? And then you execute and you report the results. So if I were to show you a typical CPU consumption code, if it is using ADB shell, right? So you may in your test scripts have something like this: ADB shell dumps is CPU info, right? And then whatever dump that comes in, you process that, right, and take the output of that, right, which is going to give you the output. Let me show you some of the screenshots I have or the information. So if you take the case of the Android debugger, right? If you are, let's say, looking for battery usage, you may on the command line run ADB shell dumps this battery, and it will basically give you all information about the battery. If you're looking for CPU usage, you may say ADB shell dumps is CPU info. If you are using memory usage, you may get a dump using ADB shell dumps is disk stats, and so on. And this is some kind of a, like if you're running the command line, or you're running the on command line ADB shell dumps is meminfo, and let's say, you have a Google app, right? So here I have, for example, com.google.android.gm, right? You will get all this information about the memory usages, the PSS, the shared dirty, the private dirty, the heap size, allocated, free, and so on. And then basically the total information, which is summed up over here in the last line. And this all information, programmatically, if you see, you can extract using the ADB shell dumps as CPU info, or in terms of memory usage, you can use the memory usage shell script, right? And then the output can be processed, and you can dump it into a let's say a usage data txt, right? So that's how you can like programmatically run, right, your test. Now, so that's one way. But if we look at the cloud solutions, right, like pCloudy, they can help you to, number one, do away with the manual lab that you have. So you can use on the cloud device offering which is there. So that's the first scenario we have over here: app level performance monitoring during manual testing, and followed by like how you can do the automation testing kind of scripts that I've written, how you can write your own scripts to use that cloud capability, and then the other stuff. So with that, I will pass it on to Nilesh to demo some of the stuff that we can do related to these kind of scenarios using pCloudy.
Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks for the insights. Yeah, let me get the control, and probably I'll start showing my screen with the demonstration. Okay, so as Ganesh mentioned, what we'll do is first we will see the manual testing part, just to see how you can actually monitor the performance data in terms of CPU, memory, or data consumption and battery consumption for any application when you are doing a manual testing. Followed by the automation part, the bot testing, and JMeter as he has presented in the presentation. So what we will do is I'll quickly show you here in this screen. You must be seeing a device here. This is a device which I have acquired for this sake of demonstration from the pCloudy. Now I have already installed the application in the interest of time on the device. So I'm just going and opening the application called Zomato. Now, Zomato application is open. Now let's understand that if this is the application which we are testing right from the first screen, where I'm just going and selecting the city, I can start monitoring the performance next to the device. So what I have to do is I have to just go to Performance tab here, click on Choose an app, and you can select the application for which you want to select the or monitor the performance. Once I select the application, you'll start noticing the performance graphs started plotting it in this particular area. Now I'm just doing some functional testing on the real app, and I'm just going and entering Bangalore as the city. And when I have entered Bangalore and just I entered into the application, you start noticing that we are showing you the performance in terms of memory, for example, here. So the memory consumption by this application at this moment is rising to 62 MB. You can also monitor the data usage. Here it is shown 109 kilobytes of data has been downloaded and 79 kilobytes of data is uploaded. Below that, we are showing you the CPU consumption. So you can monitor the CPU consumption. When this particular page was rendered, it hit 52%, and then it is getting stabilized somewhere around 28%, and then further down. Yeah, and also here on this graph, you can monitor the battery capacity consumption. So basically, this red line indicates the battery consumption by the application. So this data, whatever you are seeing, is basically at the application level for Android devices. So red line indicates the battery consumption by the application. Blue line indicates the battery consumption by the device, and the orange line indicates the battery consumption in terms of percentage with device and the application. So all this data which you are seeing it here can be monitored next to the device when you are doing a normal functional testing. Yeah, so you don't have to do any extra additional efforts when you are using pCloudy to monitor the performance data while doing functional testing. Now, once the testing gets over, let's say I'm just going and also, monitoring one more thing. Let's say I'm going and changing the location of the device to, let's say, London. Yeah, so I'm just getting into London, central London, and asking the application to refresh the location. So the moment application refreshes the location to London, in this case, you can probably see now there will be change in the parameters. See, from 109 to 422 plus kilobytes of data is being consumed. At the same time, you can also monitor that memory is uh, uh, actually started consuming more from 58 to 103 MB and CPU consumption also. So likewise, you can monitor the entire performance data when you are actually doing the testing. Now, once your testing is done, though you are monitoring it next to the device, this particular testing parameters are still available with us in the reports folder, which I'll be showing you in a moment. So I'm just raising the device. I'm coming to reports folder here. In the reports folder, if I go to device session, I can see this is the device which I have used just now. So if I just double click that and go to the performance graph, you can go and monitor this, let's say memory. So I'm just opening the memory graph. Okay, let me just open the memory graph for this. Yeah, so this is how you can see for the memory, for the application of Zomato, this is how the memory is being plotted. Whatever Ganesh has explained you, you can very well get the data by doing some programming by using DUMSys, but you don't have to do anything in case you are using pCloudy. We'll be doing that particular thing on behalf of you, right? So you can go and consume this data whenever you want from the reports folder. Now we'll move on to the automation part. So as Ganesh has mentioned, right, there is a way wherein you can use the DUMSys commands to create a script and execute those test scripts on the real device and get the data. But if you're using pCloudy, you don't have to, not necessarily you'll have to write those particular commands. You don't have to use DUMSys as such. You can very well write your normal functional test cases the way you usually write it for the APM or some other tool. So if you're writing, for example, normal functional test scripts, you can just simply run those normal functional test scripts on the device, and we will be doing rest of the things for you. So I'm just opening my Eclipse, and there is a small application for British Airways. This is the application for which I'll be showing you a small quick demo. Now let's understand this particular code. If I just quickly walk you through, it's a very small code, but there is nothing kind of DUMSys commands or the DUMSys code for which you have seen something from the Ganesh, right? So I'm writing a simple small test cases which uses only the keywords to probably go and click on so and so button and look for the flights from maybe Bangalore to Delhi, something like a normal functional test flow. Now if I run this on pCloudy, which we have a close integration with Eclipse, so it will show me the list of devices. So I'll just tell you how to execute it quickly on any of the devices. Randomly, maybe I'm just choosing 3 devices. And once the execution starts here, you can also go and monitor what exactly is happening on the device on the device pcloudy.com. You can always go to live view and see what exactly is been doing on the real devices. Okay, you can just go and check it here. So you can go here, select the number of devices on which you have started the execution, and then you can also see the live view, what exactly is happening on the device, what kind of test cases have been run on this device. So as I said, these are all normal functional test cases. Now the test execution has started on this device already, and the second device is already started, third device is also. So all the execution is happening in parallel. Now when this is happening in parallel, now in the interest of time, what I will do is I will straight away take you to the reports section. Yeah, so if I come to the reports, if I just go here and go to the report section, we have something called test automation report. Yeah, if I go to the automation reports, I can open any of the reports. So I have opened one in the interest of time, and this is what the reports will look like. We are generating a detailed report on your local system in the Eclipse folder, but additional report where you are getting the performance information and the session information will be stored on pCloudy. So now if I go and click on any of these devices, for example, Titanium here, this is what we will be showing you. So now, even if you're not adding any extra additional hooks or adding any extra additional efforts to create or grasp the performance data, we are still providing you the CPU consumption, memory consumption, and battery consumption data for your test suite. Now, we are not showing here battery consumption graph because the test case is a single test case, and the data which we have got is so small that we cannot plot it here. But otherwise, you can also see the memory and CPU consumption data is already presented here. So this is what we mean to say when you're on pCloudy, if you're running an automation test scripts, you will still be getting the CPU, memory, and battery data for the application. Now coming to the third part, which is about bot testing. So on pCloudy, we have offering called Certifier. If I click on Certifier, here you can simply go and choose the application for which you want to do testing. You don't have to do manual testing. You don't have to even write scripts for those particular tests to be run on the application. We have bots which will take care of executing the tests on those applications. So I can just go and select the application. Let's say I'm just going and selecting an application called Zomato, and you can go and provide the username, password. If at all your application is in need of that, you can provide this particular information here. And once you provide this information, you'll have to just say run. So let me see. Let's say there is something called username, maybe Nilesh, and password. So I'm just putting it Nilesh, and your application needs one more information from the user. So you can keep on adding those information by selecting this click button here. So I can go and change the label name. Let's say the label name here is mobile number. So I can enter whatever label is available on the application, and I can give the mobile number. I can change this to maybe, let's say email is something which I needed. So I'm saying test@test.com. Okay, now once all the necessary information is provided, one can go and simply click on run. Now once we say run, the platform will execute your the testing on your application on selected devices. So the platform will select 10 devices of different configurations and will execute some test on your application. It will create the test report and it will notify you through an email, right? So I'm just opening a sample report which is here. So I've already opened the sample report here. So you can see this is what the sample report will look like. Now, if you see the sample report here, this is a summary wherein we are showing you certain parameters based on CPU, memory, battery, and network consumption for this particular application, right? So we have our own internal metrics. We will try to show you, or rather we will give you the ratings based on our internal metrics, saying your application is good, bad, or it needs an improvement. So if you see the Zomato application, when actually executed on 7 different devices, the battery consumption is showing 8.1 on a scale of 1 to 10, being 10 is the best performance and 1 is the worst. So battery consumption for these applications are really good on these many devices, whereas CPU, memory, and network is doing a little above average. Yeah. So what kind of tests are executed by these bots? So we have 2 bots. One is crash test and the other one is exploratory bot test. So crash test is basically a bot which does the installation and uninstallation of your application, and it will also do some certain crash tests with few parameters which we have with the different variations, right? So once that is done, it will actually create a test report. So I'm just opening the bot test report, wherein you can see there will be certain generic information about the device, and below that we will show you whether the installation is passed, uninstallation is passed, and if there are any crash happened there, right? Below that we are actually capturing the memory chart, battery chart and CPU chart, wherein you can go and see the entire consumption of the battery, for that matter, when your application was under test by the bot. If you see the CPU chart, you will see the CPU chart which will show you the entire CPU consumption in terms of application, system, and user CPU. So you can just select whichever you want to see. Similarly, we have network charts, right? And below that, we are also taking certain snapshots for whatever tests the bot has done. So this is for the crash test. But the most important part comes with the another bot which we have, exploratory bot. So this is basically a intelligent bot which is actually powered by the artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. So if I click on this, here you will see we are providing the data or the test report in the similar fashion as we have shown in the crash test. But the important point to be noticed here is basically this bot will do the exploratory test. It will try to understand how many screens your device has, and then it will go into each and every screen. It will try to touch upon each and every workflow to reach each and every screen, and then it will capture rest of the performance data. So if I come down below, here also we are providing you in the similar fashion the memory chart, CPU chart, frame rendering time if that information is available. Else we are showing you the network chart. So you will get, without doing anything, you just need to submit the application and we will be giving you the entire information about the performance. So this is what our bot testing on pCloudy will provide you the information for. Now the last part comes is about the load testing. So as I said, like as Ganesh has also mentioned, that there are two parts to the load testing. One is when you are loading the server and doing the backend testing, where you are actually testing the server application, and the front end part is where you are actually testing the client which is on the device. So when you are testing the client on the device, we also have to see how the client behaves when the server is loaded and what kind of information you are getting it. So just for the sake of a demonstration, what I have done is I have quickly be running you a small video wherein we try to show you how you can use an open source tool like JMeter with pCloudy and get the performance data. So I'm just opening the batch file. In the batch file, we have just written certain commands to open the Maven script and JMeter scripts which we have written, and then you will see that the execution is happening on the real device on pCloudy. At the same time, we are getting the data from the server using JMeter. So you can see now JMeter is started here, and we are still using the British Airways application here. Now one more prompt has opened with the MVM test. With this test, we are actually running the normal functional test on British Airways device. So you can see probably here now we are saying we have selected a device called CoolPad. When the execution starts happening on that, you can see in the live view. So you can go and select the device. So here in the video streaming, we will be showing you what exactly is happening on the device. Yeah, and now you can probably notice that we are just running a short, small script which is actually doing some functional flow. And when this is happening, you can see it here on the JMeter script command. We are actually capturing the entire information which is passed by the pCloudy. Now, once the execution gets over, basically what we do is we dump this data in a separate file. Okay, the data for the performance we actually dump into a separate file, and then we have a small utility which will actually use that data and create a small report in the XLS format. So I'll be showing you that in a moment. So here you can probably notice that we are trying to show you what is the total consumption as mentioned it there. We are creating the test report. Okay, so this is how the test report will look like. In this test report, you can notice that, with the initial information about the test cycles and all, how many cases are passed, failed. Now here you can probably notice that we are providing you the information base for the CPU consumption, memory consumption, response time, and battery graph. So there are two parts to it. If you really look at it, the blue line indicates the CPU consumption by the device, and the red line indicates the CPU consumption by the server. So you can actually monitor both from the JMeter. This is the capability from the JMeter, that JMeter can get the data for both server and client, and the utility which we have written will plot both the data on the graph and will present it to you. So same way you can see for the memory, battery, and the response time for both client and server. And you can also see how many total transactions has done and how many are passed or failed there. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to show you from the JMeter or the load testing with using some tools like JMeter point of view. But the way we have shown with the JMeter, the pCloudy can be integrated with any other load test tools like Load Runner or NeoLoad or any other open source tool. So there are APIs available with this. By using those APIs, you can actually attach or integrate with any of the tools and get the similar kind of data, and utilize pCloudy to get the data on the real devices. So this is what I wanted to present you or give you the demo from the pCloudy perspective. I think Ganesh, if you want to conclude, or else we are good to go ahead with the Q&A session.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think that's quite useful, Nilesh. So let me just sum it up by way of putting together that whenever you're going for performance testing, the first step is you have to understand what are the key performance requirements that the customer are looking for, right? Definitely launch time is one parameter, but then inside your application, what are those important use cases or workflows that people will be using the most, right? So for example, let's say if it is a real estate search site, right? So then you need to be, like if you're searching for a house to rent. So the moment I feed in the parameters like, the locality, the number of, bedrooms and so on, and I click on search, it should be able to fetch the results very fast. Even, showing the options in the drop downs and so on. Now, depending upon whether they're coming from the back end or they are, in the front end, right? You need to figure out that what could impact the performance, which the people may be looking for, and then write down the test cases for that. That is, what are the sequence of steps that the users will be doing, okay? And or the series of scenarios, right, from one screen to another and so on. So you need to take care of that, right? So you should be really very good at designing those test cases. And then what is the setup or the environment that you need, right? It has to be a standardized environment, right? Because you have to run the test again. So for example, if you're doing a device testing, so you have to have the same state of the device every time you're running it, okay? So those kind of things. If you have a backend system, you have to have the same state of the backend system when you're running it. Otherwise, the performance test results would not be comparable and you cannot conclude anything out of it, right? So, and put all these things together in a document, call it as, let's say, performance test plan, and then execute your test. Now executing the test is just one part of it, right? On the environment and the use cases that you have defined, the results that you get interpreting the information out of that, and then getting the insights, and then zeroing it down to the level that you can identify the bug. Now, most of the time, what will happen is, as a performance tester, you may come to the point where you zero down on the test case and the scenario, which is not giving the kind of performance you need. Now, of course, related to this, I want to highlight one point of time. Make sure you define the performance benchmarks as to, for each of these given cases, what is the kind of time, CPU usage, battery usage, and all the stuff you're expecting. So that expectation is very clear, and you have to really note it down so that you can compare against that and mark the test case as pass or fail. Okay. Now, coming back to, so once you have got the results and you have pinpointed what are the exact functionality which is giving the bottleneck, now starts the next level of isolation. That at which layer is it? At the app level, then at what component, and if it is a backend system, is it at the the application server level, right? Or is it at the DB level? Or if you're not using an application server, you're using a web server, then is it at the web server? Is it to do with the machine on which you hosted the web server, right? Or if it is a cloud instance, right? Do you have the right configuration on the of the cloud instance, right? All those kind of things, right? Now, as a performance tester, one level is that you identify the functionality, you execute the results, and you give the performance results. Second is analysis. In terms of analysis, you may have shown memory usage, CPU usage, and all that stuff. But to be a even more competitive and very useful and powerful performance tester, if you can isolate to the exact level in the architecture of the application, that is going to be something very powerful in terms of what you can deliver as a person, and bring value to the team. And of course, you will have to keep on repeating this cycle at the various stages of your application development. And even once the application has gone out, you need to continuously keep on monitoring how your performance, how your application is behaving with the customers in terms of the performance parameters. So that's all I would like to add in summary. So go ahead and make best of the tools which are available to you, and make your applications rocking. Yeah, Nilesh, over to you.
Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks for summarizing it so nicely. Okay, so we are open for the Q&A session now. I've already started getting certain questions. I believe primarily these questions are more of related to the platform pCloudy, so I'll take these questions. If there are certain other questions which are on a generic way, I'll pass it on to Ganesh. Okay, so the very first question I have got is from Mr. Naresh. What all integrations you have for load testing? So if you, Naresh, if you see from the pCloudy perspective, right now we have integration already done with two tools. One, as I've shown you, for the JMeter, and the other one we have done it with the NeoLoad, with a company called NeoTis. So if you are using NeoLoad, you can very well use pCloudy for that. I hope I have answered your question. There is one more question by Mr. Rajesh Kulkarni. Is asking, can we see these scenarios which has been performed? If I'm not wrong, I believe Rajesh is trying to ask the question more in relation with the bot testing, because in bot testing, the bots are doing certain tests, and as a user, probably Rajesh is getting confused whether I'll be getting the information or not. So to answer your question, Rajesh, if you're asking in the similar line, yes, you can see what exactly the bot has done, but in terms of the screenshots and videos. So as I mentioned you, right, the entire screenshots of the scenario is getting captured, and it will also be available in the reports folder. So you can very well go through the screenshots to see what are all steps or scenarios the bot has done. And by default on pCloudy, whether do it manual testing or functional test, automation execution or bot testing, we record the video by default. So you can always refer to the videos to see what exactly the testing has done in your test cycle. Okay, one more question by Yogesh Tandil. Do we have to add UDID to install apps? So Yogesh, I believe this question is very specific to iOS devices. So if it is for iOS devices, yes. I mean, there are two ways. Ideally, even the Apple suggests that, before you test your application, the application which is under development, on any of the iOS device, you have to add the UDID in your developer profile. Yeah, so that is the best way. If you can add, we do provide the UDIDs of all the devices which we have. You can always add those UDIDs to your developer profile, regenerate the IPA file, and then you can test it. But there is a way, there is a workaround which we are providing to ease out the testing process. Here is we do have a re-signing facility, so you can re-sign your application with our re-signing server. The moment you upload your application to pCloudy on the cloud drive, there is a feature called re-signing. You can re-sign your application, and we will take care of adding the UDIDs to your application, and then you can use that particular application straight away on any of the iOS devices. For Android, you don't have to do anything. For Android, we will be taking care of all the re-signing part and all. You don't have to do anything for the Android devices. There is one more question by Mr. Rajkamal. Is asking, is it possible to get the raw data instead of the graph? So, Rajkamal, as of now, we are providing you the entire graph for the better readability. You can always take the screenshots of that graph and use it in your test reports. We are also, very shortly we will be releasing a feature wherein you can actually download the PDF format in that. Raw data, as of now, we are not giving, but if that is something which is desperately needed, we can provide you. There is a way wherein we can provide you the raw data if required. One more question by Mr. Pratik. He's asking, can we use multiple devices for manual testing at the same time? So, Pratik, there is no limitation as such to use multiple devices. You can always open multiple tabs from your browser and keep adding or keep connecting to the device. So you can do testing on multiple devices parallelly, but then you'll have to keep switching between different tabs. Next question by Mr. Ravindra Babu is asking, how can I get the raw data for memory, battery, and CPU? So, Ravindra, I think I have just answered this question some time back, wherein I told that the raw data as of now from pCloudy we are not exposing, or rather we are not making it available for downloads. But if that is the need, we can actually provide you that data. Next question is by Mr. Shubham Agrawal. He's asking, how can we integrate pCloudy with our test automation frameworks? So, Shubham, it's a very open statement for me to answer. To answer this question, I should be knowing what test framework you are using, and based on that only I can tell you whether it is possible or not. But most likely in the industry we are seeing that people are using APM, Calabash for Android and iOS. So we are already done our integration with APM and Calabash. So if you are using any of these two things, it is out of the box. If you are using something else, probably we'll have to know, and then only I can answer your question. I believe, yeah. There is a question by Mr. Ganesh. He's asking, will there be a response time graph chart in the report section? So, response time, if you're asking about the page refresh time or the HTTP request response time, that information as of now we are not providing. We are at max providing, if you're doing a manual testing, we are providing you the frame rendering count, so how many frames are rendered at what time. That information we are providing it for the Android devices. But if you are looking from the web app point of view, wherein you want to monitor the response time for the page to render or page response time, that information as of now is not available with us. Um, okay, the next question is again Rajesh Kulkarni. Do we have parallel execution run on devices during automation? So yes, you can run parallel execution on multiple devices when you actually use pCloudy for your automation test runs. One question by Mr. Sibasis Sahu, he is asking whether while running automation test on multiple devices, will the reports be specific to all different devices opted for? Yes. So when you are running the automation on multiple devices, the reports which we are showing you will have reports for each and every device. Though we are showing a consolidated report, but you can go to each and every device and see the test result for each and every device, including the performance graphs. One question by Mr. Naresh Padmanabhan, who is asking if is there a network virtualization available? So yes, if you're asking the virtual network virtualization wherein you can throttle the network, so this particular feature is indeed available with pCloudy. You can use it while doing either manual testing or in automation test execution also. So when you are using manually, we provide you a UI through which you can actually go and select different profiles, maybe 3G good or 3G bad or no connectivity or Wi-Fi kind of things. So you can throttle the network based on your need. And we do also have APIs exposed for this particular functionality. So you can use those APIs in your test automation scripts, and you can actually use or throttle the network using the APIs in your automation scripts. A question by Pratik is it possible to keep reports and track it for manual testing? Pratik, if I understand your question correctly, you're asking while doing manual testing, is there a way we can keep the reports for the manual testing and consume it later point of time? So yes, very much. When you are doing a manual testing, the entire session video is getting recorded in the background, as I said in the beginning, and the complete device logs are also getting recorded in the background, which will be available in the reports folder for your future consumption. And if you start monitoring the performance the way I have shown in the manual testing part, the entire CPU, memory, battery, and frame rendering count information will also be stored in your reports folder, which you can consume whenever you want. Post your testing is done. So we have got few more questions. I'm just looking at the clock. Maybe we have just left with 4 more minutes, so probably we'll take 1 or 2 more questions, and we will have to end the session. In case I'm not able to answer all the questions, probably we'll get back to you in person, and we'll try to give the answers of those questions. So one question by Mr. Yogesh, who is asking, are these actual devices at your end or some kind of simulation? So Yogesh, pCloudy is all about remote device cloud on a real devices. So all the devices which we have on our cloud are real devices. There is no emulator or simulator available with this, and we have 500 plus real devices across 4 different geographies. So you can use any device of your choice. And these, as I said, these are all real devices. I'm taking the last question now. Okay, we have so many questions. So let me just select one last question from here. Okay. There is a question by Mr. Anand, who is asking, uh, is there a way wherein we can get the hard information when you are doing a performance testing? So Anand, if I'm not wrong, you're asking for, again, going back to the same, like you are asking me the question about uh, web testing, where you are actually rendering certain pages from your web server. So there, as of now, there is no direct uh, feature through which you are getting this information through pCloudy. Okay, so there is a workaround. You can always open the Chrome debugging tool which we have integrated with pCloudy. You can always connect it to Chrome development debugging tool. We will be showing you the Chrome browser. You can go and see the elements and get the hard information from the Chrome browser. Okay, but as of now, there is no direct way, as we are showing the CPU memory or the battery consumption data for rest of the applications. That way, we are not providing as of now. Maybe in future, probably we will integrate it with our cloud and may uh, show you that information. Yeah, so with this last question, I mean, there are a few more questions left here. I will probably try to address those questions directly by one-on-one basis after the session is done. Thank you so much, guys, for joining the webinar and for your time. Ganesh, thank you so much for your insightful information about the performance testing. I believe it will definitely be pretty much helpful for all the audience here. Thanks again for all for joining it. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
All right, bye.